All right. So just to backtrack for a moment, we're here on our reconsideration request. I've confirmed that the record that we submitted on December the 12th is still in possession of the board and still part of today's proceeding. And we did receive a copy of the minutes. Thank you very much. So we're here for reconsideration of our appeal, the denial of our appeal, for two reasons. One, the board's denial, the board's refusal to hear our use appeal, and two, the board's denial of our appeal on the structures, as the evidence shows that one of the sheds directly abuts the property lines, so outside or within the setbacks of the ordinance. I asked if members of the board had read our reconsideration request, and because I saw some heads shaking, we confirmed with the chairman that we will go through our reconsideration request. So first, there was some implication at the December 12th hearing that it's not the CEO's duty to enforce the ordinance, to enforce the use provisions of the ordinance. That's explicitly set forth in the ordinance. It is explicitly the CEO's duty to ensure conformance with the use provisions of the ordinance. Because it's the CEO's duty, he issued a notice of violation to Mr. Sweeney back in September. Subsequently, Mr. Sweeney filed two after-the-fact permit applications, one for each of the sheds that already exist on his property. On his permit applications, which are in our first packet within the record, he applied for a shed for the occupancy use, and I quote, accessory storage, animal housing, goats. For his second shed, he applied for the occupancy use for accessory storage, animals, goats, and chickens. Subsequent to those applications, the CEO issued a building permit for those sheds. The building permit, also in the first packet in the record, is made provided that Mr. Sweeney complies with all the provisions of the statutes of Maine and the ordinances of Acton regulating the construction, maintenance, and use of buildings and structures, and of the application on file with this department. So by the terms of the permit, the use of the buildings and structures is within the purview of the CEO, and the CEO issued this permit based on the application on file with this department. And the application explicitly states that the use is for the housing of livestock. It is our belief that Mr. Sweeney's sheds and use violate multiple provisions of the Town of Acton's ordinance. It's within the shoreline zone on a quarter of an acre. The town's ordinance and the town's comprehensive plan clearly do not intend for this use to be allowed. Indeed, they explicitly prohibit this use, and we believe that in denying a hearing of our appeal of the use of the property, this board erred, and we're asking for your reconsideration today and hearing of our use appeal.
Okay.
That's our request, yes.
So you said the new evidence?
I'm requesting that you reconsider your refusal to hear our appeal of the use of the property. It's the first request. And the second is I'm requesting that you reconsider your denial of our appeal of the structures, because it is our belief the evidence shows that the structures violate the setbacks of the ordinance. So two reasons for reconsideration is our request.
And you're all done with it? I mean, you have anything to add?
I again, just looking for you to reconsider and can hear us on the entire matter.
Ken, do we have any thing to add to?
I have no new information, unless you have a question you want me to answer.
I have a question. Are either one of the two structures which you were included in the permit application within the 10-foot setback of the property line?
I don't require a certified plot plan for a movable shed. We do for things that take foundations, we would require a certified plot plan in the shoreline zone, but for a movable shed, we don't require that, it's not our policy. I haven't seen any information telling me where that property line is. A lot of times people will have stakes in the ground and they'll say, that's my property line. We call that an old horseshoe pit. If we're doing a house and things like that, our policy now is we require a certified plot plan.
I understand.
So these sheds, are they actually in the ground or are they above ground?
They're just resting on the ground.
Resting on the ground.
Yeah.
Right. So during the last meeting, I understood that they met the setbacks already.
That they had moved the sheds.
In other words, they had moved it a couple of times, they had moved the sheds.
So the property line, from what I gather, is in dispute, and according to Mr. Sweeney, he's moved it far enough away so we don't want it to be about his disputed line that's there, so it's in a dispute, which would be a full-blown survey usually to clean that type of a dispute up. But, so my concern was waterfront setback, and it clearly meets the 100-foot.
But their point of contention is that
Nobody's given me a survey showing where this property line is that these sheds are encroaching.
I understand what you're saying, but their contention is that it's within 10 foot of a property line. So you're going to have to prove that it's within 10 feet of the property line by a survey or something, okay?
What we provided to the town is drawings that's also in the appeal packet showing the shed right up on what we believe the property line to be.
That doesn't work.
Yeah,
It sounds great, but it's got to be surveyed.
And Mr. Spencer White, who spoke at the last hearing,
Said he had the survey.
we have a survey done.
He should have a copy of the survey. He should be able to get back in touch with the people that did the survey. And, I mean, it should be, there should be something to substantiate where that property line was when the surveyor did his job, okay? I understand that supposedly some stakes or posts were moved or removed, shall we say? But, I mean, if you want us to say that this shed is right up against this property line, I have to have positive, proof that, this is the property line. I'm not saying I wouldn't, go in your favor, but I have to have positive proof that that's what exists, okay? Drawings that you submitted and provided us with, those are nice, but it's not, I don't think it qualifies as a legal document, okay?
All right, we did provide drawings, we provided photographs showing the shed directly abutting the fence line. Mr. Spencer White testified that he did have a survey done and stakes were removed by Mr. Sweeney.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, I'm just setting it up.
Just say allegedly.
All right, that's what he alleges. He's not here to speak for himself, unfortunately, he's having some poor health. So we have drawings, we have photographs, we have Mr. White's testimony. We also have the testimony of the CEO at the last hearing that he never even measured. So
He said he measured, because I asked Kenny directly if he measured up there, and he said yes, he would.
he said he measured the 100-foot setback. He did not say he measured a 10-foot setback.
He didn't really have anything to go by other than what was expected.
Right, but the evidence before the board is that there was no measurement done, so how can a permit be issued? A permit is issued in violation if there's no measurement of the setback. And that is not an applicant's, that is not an appellant's burden, that's the applicant. That's Mr. Sweeney's burden to affirmatively establish his property line and demonstrate that he's outside of that 10-foot setback.
The problem is the same thing. You're telling us one thing, but the survey will tell us a whole different ballgame. And
Right.
that's kind of, we need something legally that's going to pertain to what you're saying or what they're saying.
Yes, and what I'm saying is that
A drawing isn't going to do it.
I agree that a survey is a much more definitive statement. What I'm saying is that's Mr. Sweeney's obligation. He never provided a survey that would demonstrate that he's outside of the setback, and no measurements were ever made.
Yeah, so Ms. Sweeney here defending you, you're the one defending your property supposedly.
Right.
In order to defend your property, you've got to come to us with lines and surveys, even if it's a one-line type of deal that I know they can do, that says yes.
We're not defending our property. We're appealing a permit that was issued for Mr. Sweeney's property.
Yeah, but they're saying it's too close to yours, and that's why.
We're saying it's too close to the line.
Well, we have to have.
And the permit cannot issue unless the CEO makes an affirmative finding that it is outside of the setbacks. And the CEO cannot make that unless the applicant shows him where the line is. It has nothing to do with any of the...
Okay, let's stop here.
Okay.
Let's stop right here. I think the CEO went out there in good faith to mark out where these buildings were going to go, okay?
They were in existence.
Right, but after the fact, you went out there and made sure that they were in fact where they're supposed to be, in good faith. Is that correct?
I don't know what the CEO's actions were. My understanding from the last hearing is that he only measured the setback from the lake. All of this is kind of irrelevant. My point is that it's the applicant's burden, not our burden, to establish where his property line is to show that his structures
But
are movable.
we talked about the structures are movable. So even if you spend all that money to do a survey, and Mr. Sweeney goes out there and moves it 5 feet because he can't, because the building's not in the ground. I mean, it's 5 feet. I mean, it's still going to be there.
Yes, that's why we want you to hear our use appeal.
And did you have something? The use has nothing more about the use.
There's everything in the ordinance.
Show me something specific
About the
that
use.
says you can't have goats on this piece of property. Show me something specific.
Because the goats, from what I understand last meeting, is that they're above the shoreline.
Let's not get too far astray here.
Because
She said use it.
Yep, there are multiple provisions that say you cannot have goats in the shoreline zone.
Show it to
They're
me.
livestock.
Show it to me.
Section 3.2 definitions, agriculture, the production, keeping, or maintenance for sale or lease of plants and or animals, including but not limited to forages and sod crops, grains and seed crops, dairy animals and dairy products, poultry and poultry products, livestock, fruits and vegetables, and...
Okay, wait, stop.
Stop. Your first word. Go back to the very first word. Your first word was agricultural.
Yes,
Okay? It's not an agricultural lot. It's zoned shoreland.
precisely.
Move on.
That's the issue. And then
No,
you turn
so
to...
you said for sale. In that paragraph says for sale.
Yes, and the evidence that we provided to you shows that he
But
is
he's-
selling the milk
But he's not.
and the meat
It's for his
and the
child.
eggs.
It's for his child.
That's not what the evidence shows. We provided document after document after document that this board refused to take a look at, showing commercial hours of operation, commercial presence on the Food Bev website, advertisement of meat goats,
Prior.
kind of like a pet.
Prior.
As
Is
a,
it still active today? Is there still active commercial operation happening on Mr. Sweeney's property today?
I don't know the answer to that, but as of December 12th, when this board first convened on this issue, yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
The site was still up on the web, I will agree with that, okay? There was nothing mentioning prices. That information was not there, okay? Now, I'm not saying he's not, okay? But you have to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Okay, I'm happy to. I can show you what we provided to you. I'm happy to.
Kenny wanted to say something.
Did you have something?
Oh, back with the setback issue. If we did have a structure that was too close to the setback, we don't go through the zoning board of appeals to that. That would simply come to us, here's our evidence, let's go and take care of it. So if it was within the setbacks, we'd take care of it.
Right.
It's a movable shed. Again, our policy isn't to require somebody to supply a full-blown survey for a shed, something without a foundation.
And my question was, this prior complaint about being close to the border, was that prior to him moving? Because he did say he had moved the sheds
I did say,
away from the border.
It was both times. So it was much closer, he's moved them away, and
Yeah.
still apparently, it's still close. So it must have been over the line the first time.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't measure side setbacks, and we don't surveys. You need a survey to measure
Yeah, I
that,
think that's a
because
survey that-
we don't prove. If the surveyor puts a stake in the ground, and we go back the next day, we don't rely on that stake. It's only when the survey is there, during that time, we rely on that stake. Otherwise, we look for documentation, a certified plot plan stamped by the surveyor saying, this is the line, this is the structure, this is this, and we put it in the file.
right.
Anybody else have any questions to Ken?
I'd like to state we've got Facebook posts, food bank website, Maine Miniature Dairy Goat Association membership.
Yeah, and you can have a membership of anybody. I have 10 memberships of different things too. It doesn't matter what you're members of.
It doesn't, if it's a commercial.
No, it does not. I can be a member of a commercial operation today or tomorrow or next week, and it doesn't matter.
I certainly believe it's indicative of their operations. Their logo also advertises meat goats, which do not sound like pets to me. All of that aside, if you go to section 5.2 of the ordinance, it governs agricultural uses, not limited to commercial. You'll see in the land use chart, which is at section 2.7, in the shoreland zone, agricultural uses are prohibited, but only commercial. It says agriculture, parentheses, commercial. The agricultural provisions of section 5.2 are not limited to commercial use, they are just for agricultural use. And that is because this town does not intend for people to keep livestock on their quarter-acre properties right on the lake. The agricultural provisions lay out setbacks wholly different from your general structural setbacks. And in an effort to protect this town's lakes, to protect the dug wells of the neighbors, to protect the well of the property owner. There's a 100-foot setback for his own well to protect his own drinking water from piles of manure. And without enforcement of these provisions, the landowner himself is going to have water problems. I mean, this is the purpose of these provisions, it's the purpose of the ordinance, it's the purpose of this town's comprehensive plan, not to have livestock and manure piles on a quarter-acre in the shoreline zone. And we believe that in failing to uphold these agricultural provisions, the CEO acted in error, and in failing to hear us on this, the zoning board acted in error.
Can I ask you back 1 minute?
Sure.
You talked about they can't have agricultural there if they're selling it, right? Is that what that says?
This is not limited to commercial. So the land use chart limits it to commercial
I want the
use.
last part you read about sales of the building. I want them to know about the sales. In other words,
The sales.
agricultural sales, the ones that you just read.
The evidence?
No. What you just
Definition?
read, the definition.
Yes.
Because what you're telling me is that this sales purpose, he can't have sales there. At this point, we can't prove that he has sales. This is why I'm asking. But if it's agricultural, in other words, if he's just raising an animal, he can have it.
He cannot, because under the shoreland chart, it is limited to commercial use. It says agriculture, parenthetical, commercial. That's the shoreland chart. So just plain agriculture is not limited underneath the shoreland chart. So I agree with you that if it's not commercial, you can have it according to the chart, but then you get into the setbacks of section 5.2. And he doesn't have enough space on his property to have any of this. It's too close to his well, it's too close to the neighboring wells, and it's too close to the
Members, anybody else have any questions?
Well, what do we do with all the sort of farms in town? And I would imagine most farms in town are around shoreline zone.
Yeah, so that's sticking with one case here right now. You don't worry about anybody else right now. So
I'd like to hear Kenny's response to the
5.2?
to 5.2, which says,
So it says agricultural. First thing I go is definitions for agricultural, and it's going to tell me for sale or lease. Within the third or fourth word is sale or lease. Talking to the property owners, they told me it's not for sale or lease. So whenever I'm dealing with a situation, I have to look at a violation as, how am I going to explain this to the judge? If I'm moving forward with this, is this going to be a ridiculous case that he's going to throw out because there's going to be no evidence that he is selling the stuff today? You're going to have a lot of old catch the web that have been there forever, that he's gonna get out of there. So they're telling me it's not for sale and lease. I didn't go undercover and try to buy some goat meat or something like that. I took it as their word that it's not for sale or lease, and he told me he's removing the website. He's went from 16 goats to 6. The chickens are gone, I believe. So he's reduced it down to getting milk for his kids. He may give some away, he may be a member of the goat association or whatever, I don't know, and he can be. As long as he's not running a business out of there that I can clearly catch. Had I clearly been able to prove a case, we would have prosecuted it.
So there's nothing in 5.2 that says he can't have a goat, or 4 goats, or 6 goats. There's nothing in 5.2 that says he can't have that.
We've always looked at that as a commercial venue. 5.2.
Contrary to what this lawyer is saying. This lawyer is telling you that part of 5.2 does not deal with commercial, it's agricultural.
That is her interpretation.
Right, everybody interprets.
So my question is, how do we, as an appeals board, and I'll take an answer from anybody that wants to throw it at me, how do we, as an appeals board, deal with this?
I have 2 suggestions. One, the land use chart makes clear that that agriculture is not limited to commercial uses because it specifies that it is just the commercial use that's prohibited in the shoreline zone. So plain reading of the land use charts makes clear that agricultural can include, the term agriculture can include both commercial and non-commercial uses. If you turn to the definition of agriculture itself, keeping with the Oxford Common Rules, which the Maine Law Court just upheld, the production, keeping, or maintenance for sale of lease. If you read that provision using the rules of grammar, the sale or lease clause is only referring back to maintenance. So it's the production of plants or animals, the keeping of plants and or animals, or the maintenance for sale or lease of plants or animals. He is keeping plants and he is keeping animals on his property. That's agricultural, and he's raised baby goats before, so he has 6 now. Who knows if he's going to have 16 again come spring?
Okay. Yes.
So when we first got the complaint, first thing I did was call the DEP.
Yeah.
And I didn't get halfway through the first sentence, and they said, stop. It's not for sale or lease. If it's recreational, they can have as many as they want, unless the town has something more stringent than the DEP.
And the town does, section 5.2.
It's, in the ordinance, you'll see that it's my job to interpret this.
Right.
That is my interpretation. So when my interpretation is challenged, they'll come in, and that's their rights, is to come in and have the Board of Appeals look at the interpretation or the implementation of how the ordinance is written. That hasn't been changed. I think in 20 years, it's been there for 20 years. I don't think we've ever touched it. And maybe it's something the subcommittee of the planning board may want to look at. They've talked about it a little bit, but for future issues.
Right.
I just encourage you in interpreting the ordinance, which is your job, to think about the purpose of these provisions and the purpose of the city's, the town's comprehensive plan. If you read 5.2, it makes it very clear that the keeping of livestock on your property is not what this town intends to allow. There are piles of manure. There are noise and odor problems. Yep, and there are landowner wells, including the landowner himself as well. So when you're interpreting the ordinance, you need to look at the entirety of the ordinance, and you need to look at the town's comprehensive plan and think, what did this town intend in creating these setbacks for manure piles by people's wells?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
last time I knew, we were an agricultural country in town. And then, as long as I've lived here, which probably longer than most, we've always been agricultural.
Absolutely, but not the shoreline zone. I mean, this town made a concerted effort to protect the shoreline, as did the state of Maine, and that's why we have our land use
But the
chart.
roads are beyond the shoreline zone. They're above.
No, they're not. The sheds are already up, but the barnyard, the pen extends all the way down. That's not all the way down, but it extends well within that 100-foot buffer zone.
No, we had a conversation about the goats and if they're active, if there's gonna run off down to the water.
And
They said no.
the pens, right, the pens extend within the 100-foot setback. And those, we have photographic evidence of them just milling about by the lake. They've been free-range goats.
Everything we've gone through, we're not going to do that again.
Okay, well, I'm just,
Just leave it as
but
it is now. You have a
in addition to that 100-foot setback, there are the manure setbacks too, which are crucial for wells.
You have a question for Ken?
Okay, on all of this that's going on and so on and so forth, to my knowledge, the gentleman's, how much longer does he have on his permit before it's finalized?
Permits are good for 2 years if you start the first year.
Okay, and how much longer does he have on this permit before you have to go out and finalize?
They were just issued a couple of months ago.
All right, so he actually still has over 18 to 20 months left to
Correct.
be finalized.
Yep.
At that point, if there's any issues, what happens? If you go out and say he did something wrong, do you make him put it back? Do you tell him no?
Let's say the roof rafters were too small or something like that. Right, he'd get a field inspection report showing the deficiencies and that he'd have to fix those.
So until the final inspection, there's not too much...
Permits are still open.
Okay.
Well, that's right.
I mean, we might have a sidewalk on this little, so it's,
For done, I'd like to get a motion from somebody to either deny this appeal or approve this appeal.
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone doing either until we investigate further
yeah, I second
as
that.
to whether or not the sheds in question are within setbacks or not within setbacks, whether or not piles of manure exist within 100 feet of a water supply, both the resident and/or abutters. We need more information if you're going to actually consider reversing our original decision.
My other statement would assume that would be a survey.
I'm not saying I want a survey, I'm saying that I don't want to make a decision on this right this minute. I think further investigation is required. I think it's required by this zoning board of appeals to do a site walk, to actually look at the property in question. I've been down there 3 times. I've never walked the property because I didn't want to intrude upon anybody and get anybody all worked up. But I do know where the property is located. So that's my motion.
I second that motion.
If I may, the board is welcome onto our property.
It's closed right now.
Pardon me, my apologies.
We got a motion to look into this, even though we've gone through all this evidence and everything else. Plus, there's a lot of it that doesn't affect us.
She brought up points that make it questionable as to whether or not the CEO is required to question the utilization. Okay, I need further guidance and further information and further proof that our CEO made an error in issuing the permit due to utilization. Okay, as far as I know, you get a building permit, for a structure. You don't get a building permit for utilization. But I'm going to grant some question as to whether or not there is actually utilization considerations, okay? In the issuance of a building permit. You need me to repeat my motion, sir?
Well, I'm just trying to clarify that you want to review this. But Ken already mentioned the fact that utilization, they're allowed to have goats and build a shed for the goats. So I don't know what exactly you're trying to put into on this that would affect building those sheds where they are. And again, the only thing on the setbacks was the fact that they need a, they need to have a survey for us to be able to judge anything on that part. But we have a motion, we want to repeat the motion and, again,
I don't think it's the shed locations that he's talking about. I think most of the land use itself, research some information about that, and then the shoreline, we can bring up the shoreline. But I'm curious to find out if that shoreline, what they're talking about, affects other farmers in it.
well, we're not worried about anybody else right now, that's out of the question. Right now, we're dealing with one person, we don't care about what happens to anybody else. Ken Paul has already brought up the fact that it's 100 feet from the waterway, from the shoreline. Anything else that you can get from goats, dogs, cats, or whatever, you might have in the shoreline.
I think it's worth for us to do at least a site view, a site walk, just to be out there and actually see it firsthand.
Well, let's repeat what the motion might be. Go from there.
I knew he was gonna do that.
What do you have?
I knew you were gonna do that.
I make a motion that we do not disapprove or approve the current request by this individual without further investigation. And that's all I'm going to motion about.
I second.
Thank you.
Everybody understood the motion? All in favor? All opposed? Three, but not approved
Okay.
motion.
So you disapprove my motion?
Yes.
As you wish.
So now it comes down to motion that can be approved for, so do we have a motion to deny again or approve the
And
permit?
then it's basically we're gonna abstain, and then you're back to, you won't have enough.
We're not to revote.
So we're kind of like in a,
You're gonna stay
you're a stalemate right now.
No, we're not, yeah, we're assuming. But we have to have a motion first to vote on it, see what goes.
I'm just telling the future.
Yeah, motion to deny the,
Are you making this motion, Mr. Chair?
if somebody else wants to make the motion, I'll make a motion to deny the appeal. Need a second?
Just for clarity, that motion's to deny the request to reconsider.
Right. We have a second? No?
Your motion fails, sir.
Yes, sir. So,
Again, I will remake my motion.
I don't think it's gonna hurt just to look.
I personally want to go do a site walk, okay? I understand that the weather and the conditions around the particular piece of property are not necessarily conducive to doing a site walk given this particular time frame. We just had a bunch of snow. I understand that. I also understand the chair's reluctance due to mobility issues that he may experience, not wishing to participate. You don't have to.
I'm not talking about that right now.
I understand that. But, I personally want to do a site walk. That's my motion.
It doesn't have to be anytime soon.
No.
Well, this case is hanging in the...
Contract, you can't just...
Well, not really. Not really, because the petitioner, the person who got the permits has 2 years to do his building, okay? He's only used 3 months, 4 months of his time, so he's still got a long time. He's got a year and a half at least to actually solve any and all problems that may exist, okay? Do we have to act on this particular request by the petitioner being, that wants us to say that the permit was issued in error? I don't think we do. Not an immediate,
Yeah, no.
okay? So I think we should, I think we should postpone this, all right? Do a site walk, see if there's any other information out there that we can gather, and then reconvene.
So what would your site walk show you?
I'm not really sure, Kenny. This is my first time sitting on the board, zoning board of appeals, okay? I don't know if there's going to be any concrete evidence that's going to show me, hey, that's where the guy's property line is,
Well, that's outside of the case, right? It needs a setback. It's the big sign that says "Goat for sale"
Right.
that I missed, or, the UPS truck back.
I understand, I mean, without going down there, number one, I never saw a sign,
Exactly.
okay? And like I said, I've been down there 3 times.
Yeah. Did you smell anything?
Didn't smell a damn thing.
Me neither.
Okay? But of course, given the time of the year it is, all you're gonna smell is cold air, really, unless you get real close to a pile of manure, real close. As you well know where I live within how many yards of a barn? No, I'm not even talking about Dave Langley's farm across the road. I'm talking about Josh Gore's place, which is right next door to my place.
I call it-
He has a horse, and he has chickens at times, and he's had goats at times. Do I smell them? Nope. So, again, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to find if I go do a sidewalk, but I would like the opportunity to do this before I make a decision. I think Dan was, in support of doing a sidewalk. I can't speak for anybody else, but that's the way I feel.
No, I feel more comfortable building on something that I actually see firsthand, besides looking at papers.
Well, it would be in the interpretation of what you're going to see. And it really comes down to commercial use, if we're talking use. Because I don't think the sheds are an issue.
I don't think the sheds are an
The
issue.
sheds are-
I don't think it's commercial, I don't think it's commercial use either.
So where are you gonna find, how are you gonna determine it's a commercial use going out there?
Unless I catch somebody buying goat meat or buying goat milk, guess what? I'm probably not going to be able to determine commercial use. And I don't necessarily feel that he's doing commercial use. He may have been in the past, okay? I understand, there was a website. He did have it up, he's had it up under 2 different names. Why did you change the first name? I don't know.
But again, a lot of that would go back, fall on the code enforcement's,
But again,
they start doing commercial otherwise.
again, that's true, again.
We just gotta know what we plan on seeing down there.
I don't know what I'm gonna see, Bob. I don't know until I go do it.
Let me explain over, but I don't see what we're going for.
But I think we need to finalize the shoreline use. Well, I'm curious.
Mr. Chairman,
Research that.
is there any possible way to table this situation until we have a better definition of what that, what is it, 5.2 is?
We can.
That way, if we have a better definition from somebody or someplace, that would give us more reason to go forward, I think. But, DEP is saying one thing. Kenny, which I agree that he did his job where it's supposed to do. These people have issues with it being farm. I think we need more of a definition from the 5.2.
We need more definition. Going down there is not gonna change.
No, that's not gonna change
I'm
that
just trying to,
definition. But
the way that we go down there, what's
We need
gonna change?
more
Not change. That's my
agricultural
point.
work, I guess, is what I'm getting to. Well, obviously, this town is meant to be agricultural.
Well,
You know what I'm saying? And down there may not be, it could, I'm not sure, I'm not denying anybody their pets, animals, and so on and so forth. But it seems to be this usage, it's not, to me, it's not my issue, this usage, because usage can change anytime it wants to. In other words, it could be, I could chainsaw it today and goats tomorrow, or have logs in it tomorrow and something else in it the next day. That's not my issue, that's a personal issue, and that's something they have to deal with. I guess what it comes down to is, like you said, it's not the building, so we're not even questioning things. It's
no,
beyond-
no,
so
no.
we've got to,
That's hence the truth. Depends on what to be seen down there, which if you two are in feeling of shame on site walk, then we'll postpone it until the site has been seen and walked, and then we can return this meeting to another day.
Yeah, and then I'd just like to read, I'd like to follow up and do some reading and research, some things before I can make a good decision on it.
Is it gonna hurt anybody's feeling to,
It's not-
move this out a week? Postpone making a decision?
Well, you guys can get down there and do the same.
I can do it, tomorrow, I can do it the next day, whatever.
So you're going on your own, not as a board? You don't bring that to the property.
That brings up other
Calling
questions.
him and asking him.
Yeah, it's
It
true.
needs to be posted, don't forget.
Yeah, sidewalk has to be posted within.
If you're going out as a board,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as an individual, you've already gone out and drove by, so I don't know what you're gonna gain any further unless he's throwing the for sale sign out.
So it would have to be, make a date for the board members that want to go for the sidewalk and go down there and see it together in one group.
Have you ever advertised that?
Brenda, how far out does the advertisement have to be and how long? You get it, so.
I don't think it has to be advertised because it's just for the...
She just said it had to be advertised.
If you have a quorum, then it needs to be posted.
Right.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying for us to go to the sidewalk. I mean, it's just the members who are interested in going down the sidewalk. It's not,
If you have more than 3 people going.
How many people do we have on this board?
7, but you have 5 voting members, so a quorum is 3.
So if 3 of us decide to go down to do a site walk, then it has to be posted.
It does.
And how much time in advance?
I believe it's supposed to be 7 minutes, 7 minutes. Yeah.
there you go.
7 business days?
7 days, but you have to give whoever's doing the posting time to get that together.
You get it advertised.
I got 2 weeks on the weekend.
And if Dan and I just decide that we want to go down there, I can knock on the guy's damn door. I'm not bashful by any means.
No?
Would that be a violation of anybody's rights?
No, they give you permission.
If they give permission to go on their property and look at it. Now, can I identify myself as being a member of the zoning board of appeals
Yes.
when I tell them this? Or does that
Yes.
throw a legal implication out there?
No, I mean, you want sidewalks, but you gotta do this thing. You can't go, you one day, him another day, group, in a group of whoever wants to do the sidewalk.
There's only 2 of us that are interested in doing a sidewalk.
And it's gotta be you two or anybody else that wants to go on the sidewalk. It can't be just going down on your own. So we still gotta follow notice that we're gonna do a sidewalk. So it'll probably be at least a week.
I would expect that either Lois or Jen will be doing that, so I would say you need 8 or 9 days to get that together and get it posted for the 7 days. You have to name a specific day and time.
Right.
Do we need the owner's permission first, or do we just kind of pick it ourselves?
I think that's what.
Well, you gotta get a notice, right.
I think you've been given permission to go on the abutters property, the applicant.
See it on the applicant's property, not going on the owner's property, if he doesn't want it. Just saying.
So
All right.
today's the 22nd. You're saying, Brenda, it will take probably...
8 or 9 days.
Yeah.
So you're going to be looking at much before the first weekend in February.
The end of the first week in February, probably.
That's crazy.
I won't be in attendance then.
And that won't be either.
So I won't be in attendance.
Doesn't help.
Most of my February.
I'm coming to walk your property. I'm coming by myself. Do you have any issue with that? I've lived in Maine my whole life. I moved to this town in 1966.
Anybody else who's interested in the sidewalk?
I don't care about snow.
That's just Thursday.
So there's 4 of you.
You guys need to pick a date.
5 close wants to go.
Who's going?
I want to go.
She wants to go and he wants to go.
Wants to go, and you two
There's
want to
4
go,
here.
and there's a big chance maybe little Dennis wants to go.
I don't think so.
But it's got to be when he's not gone.
All right, when you leaving, Mr.
Don't know. I'm not gonna say it on the television.
You want to whisper something's in my ear to tell me?
Anyway.
I just didn't know because the weekends we're looking at is either the 2nd, the 9th, the 16th, and the 23rd. And I already got plans the 23rd, I have another meeting.
You're referring to those cases?
So, the thing is, the DEP doesn't really care about the wells.
It's something that doesn't affect it.
No. I mean, everywhere around here, you've got animals. Close to wells. It's just a fact of life. And it's,
We got to go over back out, we're on the well.
so that doesn't really make any decision about the farm.
You can't make a decision without sidewalk, and you're gonna have to do something.
Well, they're saying that they have.
They want it on the gas. And how close, but there's a lot of picture of water. And is there a fence up there or something to keep them from, how far from the water?
The pen area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how far?
How far is the pen to it?
How far can it go toward the water? Go toward the water?
The pen? I never measured it.
No, they don't. Well, you don't know how far.
They're always in a tent.
They're always in a pen, they're not winding down to the lake, in other words.
so many feet away from the water.
It's just a fence, so a fence is exempt from zoning as a structure.
Well, the question was how close to the water.
Yeah, get the goats, yeah.
It's gotta be outside.
So you're down to the beach?
The goats can?
Sure. Not on this lot, they can't.
Right.
There's no restriction on how close you can bring them down, because they're caps, it's not a commercial use. And that's been our office's interpretation through this project, is it's not a commercial use, it doesn't apply, none of this matters.
So it's okay for shoreline, bodies of water,
It's just not.
and there's farms and ag.
Yeah.
So this applies to a lot of farms when it comes to shoreline.
For commercial?
No, that's what it comes down to. We can't have that many farms on the body of water.
Yeah, 125 miles of shoreline zoning in the town of Acton with resource
And how
protection.
many acres of resource protection?
I don't know.
Because that's what I need to let to clear up.
Because it's all of Goose Pond Road going down Goose Pond, that's all RP. So, and there's, I think, 2 farms just going down there that are RP.
Right,
Personal use.
and that's fine.
Exactly.
All right.
That's my interpretation that it's fine. Their attorney has a different interpretation. If we go find another attorney, we'll find another interpretation, because that's their job, is to argue their client's interpretation.
I understand that. So it boils down to if this is agriculture, commercial, or pets.
Exactly. And I couldn't find any evidence that this is continuing to be future. I think in one of the applications, it says it's intending or it's going to be, and I mean, none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow, never mind guarantee it.
But if something changes tomorrow, or you find out, you can go down there and issue violation.
Correct.
Or everything won't, but
And
that's,
that's why I asked how many years out or what he's out at, to make sure that.
No, that's just the structure.
Yeah.
and so it changes all of a sudden, you have the right to go down and enforce it. That's what Kenpol, the CEO does.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's not something that couldn't change in the future.
So are we going to table this temporarily?
In the city, because Dan doesn't have to do a sidewalk, you're the only one that has to do a sidewalk.
I'm coming to your property, okay? And I'll be down there within the next 2 or 3
You need
days.
to know.
It doesn't matter what I need to know. Doesn't matter.
No, I just put some stuff on there. I mean, you can't make a decision.
I'm not asking you to go out and, shovel snow and all that.
The rest of it with the board.
I have a couple of people that live there that do.
We can hash it out now.
That's what we're doing. Right, it's not open. We're hashing this out. Okay. All right, so once the topic you brought up was the manure, okay? There's nothing in the DEP, so that's fine, according to the last meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a moot point. The livestock going out to the water.
He says
It's not commercial, it's residential, they're pets, that's fine. If they do get down.
If what?
If they do if they are down there. It's not, since it's not a commercial use.
Right.
I don't like that at all. And because they're not commercial, they can go right, the goats can go right down to the water?
It's because they can drink, it's like drinking out of a puddle. It's the same thing.
I don't know.
But if you have the area with a fence, and I'm not saying that there's a fence, you know, and to what extent the fence restricts the goat's movements, okay? If there is a cyclone fence, chain link fence that has been erected, and it encloses the penned area, or encloses the area where the goats are housed, and the area that is quote-quote barnyard, then the goats aren't going down to the water,
Right.
ever,
And they are,
unless somebody lets them out,
but they are in pens.
so.
These goats are in pens. There's a fence there already.
I have a date.
When are you coming? When are you coming?
I will get your phone number and I will call you to let you know. Okay? Don't leave without water, you're going to get home with these.
That's so illegal.
It's very.
So I don't think a board member should be gathering information by himself, it should be a board group gathering the information. But, and again, tonight's meeting was new information to reconsider it. I haven't really heard any new information, I heard the same stuff last time that was in your packets that the board didn't want to consider last time. And now we're going to consider. I was hoping to get some resolution here.
Look at me, Robert.
If you have any other questions?
Personally, no, I don't have any other questions. I don't really feel that, you know, as Kenny Paul just said, no new information has come forth. Did we actually do due diligence in considering the information that was provided prior? Again, when I initially made the motion at the last meeting, as far as I was concerned, it was strictly you were appealing the permits for the buildings, okay? I don't care about usage, you know? That was my opinion. And to some extent, it still is my opinion. I could house dynamite in a shed, and unless somebody finds out about it and objects about it, you know, I could have that there for a long time before anybody, you know, might say anything.
Then I think we just vote.
Maybe a conclusion.
Just do
If
it,
that's what we want to do, then fine,
because as it stands now,
somebody make a motion.
and then we move on from motion.
I feel like I'm sitting in post, so I have no idea what to say. Like.
Well, right now, I'm promoting either to deny or approve. It's appeal.
It needs reconsideration.
Can I ask, what would approval entail? So we're denying or approving, looking back at the information that we presented with at the last meeting?
Because what, approval or just appeal?
It's not an appeal, it's a reconsideration.
Reconsideration is appeal, right. Then if you vote yes on the reconsideration, then we have to go into the issue of the permits for those two sheds. If the denial of the reconsideration, then the alternative is go to the Superior Court and take it there, which they have every right to do that too. So,
And that might be a better venue for this.
I'd like to hear a motion of some sort.
Make a motion to deny the reconsideration.
In a second? I'll second. All in favor of denying this reconsideration? Vote yes. All in favor? That's 4 out of 5. So the motion has passed on the denial of the reconsideration. And we thank you for your time.
And I'm still coming to see you.
And I'd like to thank the students.
No, I just think it needs to be able to a different level.
I'm not going to be going down there as a member of the zoning board of appeals. I'm going down there to visit a friend, and not her. Before somebody casts aspersions upon me.
Say that word again, but nobody's coming.
I'm sorry?
Say that word again. Nobody's coming.
I can't even remember what I said.
That's like my memory is the second thing you got.
You writing that down?
Yes, I am.
Oh, all right.
So,
I was gonna put it on the paperwork, that's okay.
Don't get discouraged, this is extremely complicated.
It is very complicated.
Before, you know, I was thinking the day or something. Like I said, I do have some friends.
Take that job.
Thank you.
Overcome them and just, I think it's 4 or 5 days.